Hello everyone and welcome to my corner of the world. Today I'm going to share another stamping technique with you. We're going to do heat embossing and I've made that the focal point of my card. This flower is heat embossed. The greeting is as well inside, and then if you look at the envelope, I've also heat embossed the envelope. So I've also added another little technique in here where we're actually going to paint the inside of this flower. So I am using a stamping image that's kind of open. It's sort of an outline rather than solid. And I'm using this stamp set. It's called Magnolia Blooms. I like it because it's got lovely flowers and leaves, but it's also got a nice happy birthday, a nice thank you. Now this isn't in the annual catalogue. This is actually in this little catalogue which Stampin' Up! Have put together for folks who may be new to stamping or may have limited space and they don't want to have a lot of stuff, but they want to be able to produce beautiful cards. And so there's all these ideas in here, and this is the stamp set that's in here, and it does come, you can order a bundle that has card bases and some memories and more cards and things, but we're just going to use this stamp set. I just wanted you to know where we could find it. So we're going to start with some Whisper White cardstock, and you're going to need Versamark, which is a clear ink. It's particularly sticky and it stamps clear. And we're also going to need the embossing buddy, and I'll explain a bit more about that in a moment. And then I'm going to be using the copper embossing powder. I like to keep mine in this open container, and I also use a spoon to put it on my card. And I'm gonna then need my stamp with the magnolia flower on here. So we're going to start by using the embossing buddy, and I'm putting that over the card, and this basically is going to take some static away. And also, if I've got any oily fingerprints on it, it should quieten those down. And I've got my Versamark, and I have my gonna ink up my stamp like this, and I'm just gonna pop it in this piece of card here, pressing firmly. And then what you want to do, you could hear how sticky it was when it peeled off the card then. What you want to do next is to put the embossing powder on straight away while it's still wet. And just gently tap to move any excess. Now I like to keep a little brush next to me, just in case I get any bits that won't of embossing powder that won't come off. There's a tiny bit there, which is fine, but it just means that I can get that out of the way before I apply my heat gun. And I'm also going to put my cover back on my ink so I don't dry that one out. So I'm just going to use my heat gun to fix. Basically I'm melting the powder into the sticky ink, and it'll just take a few moments for it to take. I can use the back of my paintbrush to hold it in place, because this can get quite hot and you certainly don't want to be burning your fingers while you're supposed to be having fun stamping. So I am just going to finish this off. You'll see it sort of starts to liquefy, and I'll show you in a few moments. And I like to just keep it on there a few extra moments just to get a smooth surface, and I think you can just see in the camera there that that's given me a really smooth surface. I'm going to set that aside for a moment to dry, And I'm going to get my card base. I had it, oh here it is. I'm going to get my card base, and I'm going to do the same inside my card. I'm just going to use the same stamp like that, and again I'm just going to sprinkle the powder on. And that's why I like to use this open plastic container, because it means that I can get my the excess powder off without having to worry about using little paper funnels and things like that. So again, I'm just going to melt that down. This time it will go a bit quicker because the heat gun is hot. So this is a really pretty technique to use heat embossing, and I use it a lot, and you can use it on your on its own, just like I'm going to do with this one. I'm not going to fill this one in here, or you can color it in like I'm going to show you shortly. And then I'm going to use my happy birthday, and I'm going to pop that down here. And if I get my head in shot, I apologize, but with these photopolymer ones it's really easy to line these up. So I'm just going to firmly press there, again in with my embossing buddy, not in my embossing buddy, my embossing powder. And I have to say, I forgot to use it on these last two pieces, but on camera, but I did prep them before I started, so I wouldn't waste any time. So again, I'm going to try and keep this at an angle so that you can see how it changes, and hopefully you can see it goes from dull to shiny, and it kind of goes a little bit bubbly and not quite so pretty. But if you hold the heat on it a few moments longer, that's when it'll start to liquefy and run, and then you'll get a nice smooth surface like that. So that's my card base, and I can't find my bone folder, so I'm just going to reinforce my fold like that. So I was originally just going to leave my video there and just cut that out and stick it on a card, and then I started thinking that it didn't quite go far enough for me. So I was thinking, well, what could I do to just bring this to a bit more life? So we have this product. This is the Champagne Mist ink, and I thought, well, that would be quite nice. I would give me a little sheen on there. So I'm going to use that. I'm going to give it a shake because I am going to work out of the cap. And I have got an old Wink of Stella pen here. It's dried out, or I've used up all the ink, and I can't bear to throw it away. So I'm just going to use it to spread out this shimmer paint all over. And I'm going over the embossed part. I'm not worrying about it because it seems to kind of resist off of the embossed part. Like that. And I'm just going to do the petals. I'm not going to do the leaves. I'm just going to do the petals. Okay. And it only takes a few moments to dry. If you want to dedicate your pen to this, you can leave it like that. I just use a piece of kitchen paper towel to get the excess ink off. And I'm going to let that dry for a few moments. And while I let that dry, I am going to show you this part of my card. Now, this is copper paper, copper decorated paper. And it's actually the little treat bags. that are in the catalogue. You can just see that they're lovely and shiny, and they're quite nice thick paper. And all I did was just open up the sides and the bottom, and this is like the front of the bag, and then there was two side pieces which which have like the seam at the back here. I don't know if you can just see that seam there. So what I decided to do was I used them to make these panels, and I've just trimmed them down, and my blog will tell you exactly the size of the of all my measurements, and there'll be a link to that at the end of my at the bottom beneath this video. And so all I'm going to do is to use a little bit of my liquid adhesive, and I'm layering this onto Mossy Meadow. I don't know, there's something like copper and Mossy Meadows, they really complement one another. So I've done that, and then I'm bringing out my other copper element, which is this lovely copper trim, and I'm just going to add a piece here. I'm just going to cut it like this, and then I'm just going to flip it over and then use some adhesive tape. This is just straightforward, you know, adhesive tape that you would use to wrap your Christmas presents up, and I like to use it in preference to glue dots or snail, because it just gives it a little bit of extra security. And pop that like that. I'm just going to give it a good old rub, make sure that it's holding that trim to the card. And then we're going to put some dimensionals on the back, and I'm going to just use 5 of those like that, and 1 in the middle, and I'm going to position it on my card base. Let's see, get those off, and I'm going to push it toward the top, pop it up toward the top, so I've got room for my happy birthday to sit there without getting obscured. Then I'm going to take my piece of my trim back again, and I'm just going to tie what I like to call a faux knot. So it looks like I've wrapped it round and tied it off, but actually I haven't at all. And that means that you get it nice and tight like that. So that is my card as far as I can take it at this time. So now we're going to finish off the medallion. And what I found is that if I lay down the shimmer paint first, it kind of seals the card, so that when I put my colour on top, then it doesn't go streaky. And this kind of gives you, this was my little practice piece. This is where I laid the ink down first. This is Sahara Sand ink, and then I put my shimmer paint on top, and can you see it's kind of a bit sort of streaky and blotchy, and it didn't do anything for me. So then when I experimented and found that I could sort of seal my paper with the shimmer paint, it gave me a much better effect. So this time I'm going to be using my water aqua painter. Now if you happen to have more of these empty Wink of Stellas, you can fill that with water as well and use it, but I've just put a couple of drops of Sahara Sand ink on a block, and I'm just letting it down with some water, and I'm just going to gently, and I think that's a bit strong for my taste, that's better, gently put the ink over my shimmer paint. This one's going to come out a little bit darker than the other one, but hell, that doesn't matter. So you don't really even need to be very, very careful with it, just as long as you perhaps just don't go outside the line there, the outside line. There we go. And again, you'll have to let that dry. I need to get that ink out of that brush. Otherwise it'll give me a nasty shock next time I use it next time if it comes out with a muddy colour. And there we kind of get that effect there. So then I've just cut it out, and I've got my circle layering dies, and I've just cut it out with one of them, and I'm going to layer it onto the Mossy Meadow here. Just making sure I get a nice even border. And then back with my card, and I want to have it sort of half on and half off of my decorated panel there. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to put my dimensionals under the bottom. I don't want one at the top, otherwise it won't be level. So I'm just going to pop them like that, and maybe just like this. And there we are. There's my card. Here's my original and the one I've just made. Again, this one is a little bit darker, but that's fine. Like it just as much. Well, I hope you've enjoyed this heat embossing technique and me showing you how you can use it to paint with as well, and how you can use the treat bags to be decorative paper. I certainly appreciate you joining me today. If you've enjoyed my video, perhaps you'd give it a thumbs up. Perhaps you subscribe to my channel so that you'll get notified when a new video comes out. I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye for now.